as I was hoping, but this defense has been really good and arguably has looked like the best defense in football. The problem is offense. Offense has just been missing for this team since the beginning of the year. Their offense is blah. And, Richard Sherman is very outspoken, former 49er. And he had his thoughts about this team and whether or not he's concerned at where the 49ers are. Here's Sherman.
Yeah, I'm really concerned. I'm really concerned now offensively. I'm not concerned defensively. They're on a historic track. But offensively, I'm very concerned. If you can't protect the quarterback, you're in a world of trouble. And it's not the NFC West is not as tough as it's always been, but the Rams are still tough, and they'll see them this week. And so they'll have to win this game, against a tough Rams team. They're leading the division. So in order to get back in it, you have to win this game. And the Rams are still a tough out. They're having their own offensive line problems.
Ramie, are you concerned?
Slightly. I'm more concerned by the thing that I'm not as concerned by the thing that everybody is talking about, which is the quarterback position. You know how I feel about Jimmy. I think you're going to get performances like you got. I'm not defending it. I'm just saying, like, he's the type of quarterback, you're going to get that. What Richard Sherman brought up there about protecting the quarterback, and especially when you have a Jimmy Garoppolo, who's not there. If you break it down real simple, Nick, there are two types of quarterbacks: the types that need to be propped up and the types that make everyone around them better. The guys that need the guys around them to make them better, and the guys that make the guys around them better. Jimmy Garoppolo, if this offensive line is leaky with Trent Williams being out, and it looked a little leaky last week, these offensive problems could only get worse. And who's coming back to save the run game anytime soon? And do you just keep going back to the Deebo Samuel as the wide back? I am slightly concerned about this offense, not so much because Jimmy Garoppolo is the quarterback, but because of what's going on around Jimmy Garoppolo. When you look at some of the injuries and struggles that this team has already had throughout 3 weeks of this season.
Start with the run game. Shanahan has always been known to get productivity from the run game. No matter who his running back is, you could almost guarantee that a Shanahan is going to have a good run game. And running the football, they have not been as good as they've been in the past. Now, it's also, when you look at these statistics, rather obvious that Shanahan wants to run the football. And some of that, of course, was Trey Lance at the beginning, the first game. Plus, we have already talked about it, how the first 15 plays of the game where Lance got hurt, you had 12 runs and 3 passes. When you look at the offense, right, San Francisco, their rush play percentage is 3rd in the NFL. They run the ball more than 53% of the time, which is a big, big number. They actually have the 4th most rushes per game. They run the ball almost 34 times a game. The issue is they're at 4.5 yards a carry, which sounds okay, but it's pretty much smack dab in the middle of the pack. So even with an okay run game, this offense still is just not going at all. And when you look at pass offense, Ramie, that's the issue. I mean, their passing offense is abysmal. I can't even,
they're the worst. I said this yesterday on the show. They're the worst in the league in dropback efficiency.
I mean, I'll give you statistically. You ready? Pass play percentage, right? Again, they run the football a lot. Stands to reason, 30th. But when you look at other stats, completion percentage, 30th in the NFL. Yards per pass, 18th. Passing yards a game, 29th. I mean, they've got nothing in that pass game. And so when you have nothing from the pass game, your okay to good run game is not going to be enough. And I think Shanahan is concerned. I have my concerns. I'm not panicked, but I am concerned because I don't think Shanahan wants to run Wilson a ton. He wants to keep him under 15 carries a game. He gave Jordan Mason 1 carry last week. I don't know what's going on there. If he's active, you give him the ball more than once. You can't run the dude one time. You mentioned the Deebo Samuel thing and that wrinkle with the wide back. The offensive line issues are obvious. I think Banks has been good, better than expected, but this offensive line has not been spectacular. It's been okay. And now without Trent Williams, I don't know what this offensive line looks like. I know the names. I'm saying the execution and the production. I don't know what this O-line looks like without Trent Williams.
And you already don't trust more than a lot of people, Jimmy Garoppolo. I would assume that your trust level only drops if he's running for his life or if he finds himself consistently under pressure. That's any quarterback, Nick. Pressure is going to affect every quarterback in this league to varying degrees, and Jimmy Garoppolo is already limited in what he does. If he's got pass rushers bearing down on him more often than he already has, that only lessens the margin of error for this football team. And the thing about it, Nick, Richard Sherman said he's not worried about the defense because they're on a historic pace. And he's right. This defense is playing out of their minds and are still waiting to get a couple guys back from injury who could make this thing even better. But eventually, and you look at the time of possession last week in that game, eventually when you're carrying the load, both figuratively and literally, that the 49ers defense is asked to carry in terms of how much you rely on them to win, plus how many snaps and how many minutes they're going to be out there on the field, it catches up to you. And that's essentially what happened to them last year in the playoffs. We saw this defense start to break down last year in that playoff loss, and that's because they had to spend too much time on the field and carry too much of the pressure and of the load of this being a Super Bowl contender.
The defense has been great. Cattles and Ramie, Sactown Sports. I do think we have to add the context. And I'm not telling you the defense is not going to be great. We talked about the defense before the season, and both of us felt like it could be a top 5 defensive unit when all is said and done. But we must point to who they've played. We can't act like they've, played against a bunch of great offenses. They played against 3 of the worst offenses in football. They played against the Chicago Bears. You know better than anybody, Ramie. Offensively, they're awful.
Terrible.
They have been terrible. The Seahawks, not good. Not a good offense. Not a good quarterback situation. And then they played the Broncos last week, who have been one of the worst offenses in football. So again, and I think their defense is good and really good, and I think they'll be a top 5 defense, like I said, before the season kicked off. But when we talk about this defense, if they have to carry this Niners team and they start playing better offenses like the Rams coming up on Monday night, the Chiefs on October 23rd, then again the Rams, then you've got Justin Herbert and the Chargers. You start to play some better offenses, this defense might not be able to be as good as it has been the first 3 weeks. They could be really good, but are you asking your defense to be almost immaculate to win football games?